Iran's supreme leader is no longer visible. As pressure mounts from the West and unrest spreads across Iran, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei has reportedly relocated to a heavily fortified underground bunker beneath Tehran.
We agree on listing the Iran Revolutionary Guard on the terrorist list. This will put them on the same footing with Al-Qaeda, Hamas, Daesh. If you act as a terrorist, you should also be treated as terrorist.
U.S. forces arriving in CENTCOM waters near Iran yesterday, holding multi-day military exercises.
And the European Union is set to classify Iran's Revolutionary Guard as a terror group in part of its role in the death of thousands of anti-government protesters.
The move comes at a moment of extraordinary convergence, mass internal protests, a tightening international noose, and a U.S. military buildup moving steadily closer to Iranian waters.
The aircraft carrier USS Lincoln is part of what Donald Trump has called an armada, including several destroyers with guided missiles meant as a warning to Tehran. On social media, U.S. Central Command confirmed the Lincoln had arrived in the Middle East, following a threat over the weekend from Trump that the U.S. might strike Iran over its deadly crackdown on nationwide protests.
We have an armada. We have a massive fleet heading in that direction. And maybe we won't have to use it. We'll see.
According to sources close to the Iranian regime, the underground facility is not a temporary shelter. It is a hardened command complex, an interconnected network of tunnels engineered to withstand airstrikes and sustain leadership continuity in the event of war. Senior military officials allegedly warned that the likelihood of a U.S. strike had reached a critical threshold. The response from the top was immediate: disappear underground. With Khamenei now out of public view, operational control of his office has reportedly shifted to his third son, Mojtaba Khamenei, who is said to be managing day-to-day affairs and serving as the primary channel between the supreme leader and Iran's executive institutions. This quiet consolidation of power signals more than caution. It signals fear, and it is happening as Iran burns from within. Weeks of unrest, sparked by merchant strikes in Tehran, have spiraled into nationwide protests. Internet blackouts, mass arrests, and lethal crackdowns have followed. Independent human rights groups estimate thousands of deaths. The government insists it remains in control. But leaders do not retreat underground when they feel secure. At the same time, the international landscape has shifted dramatically. The European Union has taken a step it long resisted, formally moving to designate Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps as a terrorist organization. The decision follows mounting evidence linking the IRGC to the violent suppression of protesters, the arming of foreign militias, ballistic missile launches, and deep coordination with groups already designated as terrorist organizations worldwide. European officials were once divided on the issue. That division has now collapsed. France and Spain, previously hesitant, signaled support after new intelligence revealed the scale of repression inside Iran. Italy followed. Germany and the Netherlands, long advocates of designation, pushed hard behind the scenes. The message from Europe became unmistakable. The killing of thousands of civilians could no longer be politically compartmentalized. The implications are sweeping. Designation means asset freezes, travel bans, and the criminalization of financial or logistical support to the IRGC. It also delivers something just as powerful: symbolic isolation. The IRGC is not a rogue militia. It is a core pillar of the Iranian state, answering directly to the supreme leader. Labeling it a terrorist organization is, in effect, a formal indictment of the regime's coercive backbone. While Europe moves, the United States positions. U.S. naval forces have entered Central Command waters near Iran, conducting multi-day exercises. The aircraft carrier USS Abraham Lincoln has been redeployed from the Indo-Pacific into the Middle East theater, accompanied by guided missile destroyers capable of striking targets deep inside Iran. Carrier air wings equipped with advanced strike and electronic warfare aircraft are now within operational range. President Donald Trump has been blunt. "We have a massive fleet heading in that direction," he told reporters. "Maybe we won't have to use it." But the movement itself is the message. Inside Iran, officials publicly reject any notion of retreat. Iranian leaders warn that an attack on the supreme leader would be treated as an act of war against the entire nation. Parliamentary security officials have gone further, declaring that such a strike would trigger a declaration of jihad and retaliation against U.S. bases across the Gulf, and potentially Israel. For global markets, the stakes are immediate. Energy analysts warn that even limited conflict could send oil prices sharply higher, disrupt shipping lanes, and draw multiple regional actors into open confrontation. Yet amid the threats and rhetoric, one fact remains unavoidable. Iran's supreme leader is underground. The IRGC is facing terrorist designation by Europe, and American carrier strike groups are closing in. This is not normal deterrence behavior. This is crisis behavior. And then, intelligence agencies uncovered something that changed the entire equation. Because the bunker was not the end of the plan. It was only the beginning. The bunker was not designed as a final stand. According to intelligence sources cited by Western and regional services, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei has approved a contingency plan that goes far beyond hiding underground. If Iran's security apparatus fractures, if police units refuse orders, if military commanders defect, if street protests overwhelm repression, the supreme leader is prepared to leave the country entirely. The plan is precise. Up to 20 close family members and trusted aides would be evacuated alongside him. Assets are already being repositioned. Properties abroad, financial channels, and foreign safe havens have reportedly been secured. This is not improvisation. This is a regime preparing for the unthinkable. One intelligence source described it bluntly. This is not about optics. This is about survival. Former Iranian insiders and defectors say the most likely destination is Moscow, not because it is ideal, but because there are few alternatives. Russia has offered protection before, and when legitimacy collapses at home, loyalty abroad becomes the final currency. The financial scale behind this escape planning is staggering. The supreme leader controls a vast economic empire through semi-state foundations and opaque holding structures that dominate key sectors of Iran's economy. Past estimates valued these assets in the tens of billions of dollars. Intelligence officials now believe portions of that wealth are being quietly mobilized to ensure a clean exit if containment fails. This revelation reframes everything. A leader who expects to remain in power does not plan exile. A system that believes in its own permanence does not prepare evacuation routes. What is unfolding is not confidence, it is contingency, and it coincides with something else just as alarming. Western intelligence has identified the exact location of the bunker. Deep beneath Tehran's Lavazan district lies a fortified complex buried nearly 100 meters underground, protected by layered air defenses and hardened against bunker-busting munitions. Analysts say it may be more secure than some of Iran's nuclear facilities previously targeted in covert or overt strikes. Since entering hiding, Khamenei has gone silent. His social media activity stopped abruptly. Public appearances ceased. Official statements are now filtered through intermediaries. Power still flows, but it is no longer visible. At the same time, the military clock is ticking. U.S. Central Command has confirmed a significant realignment of naval assets. Strike capabilities now positioned near Iran are not symbolic, they are operational. Guided missile destroyers, carrier-based aircraft, and electronic warfare platforms are configured for escalation scenarios ranging from deterrence to direct strike. Iran's response has been defiant, but revealing. Officials warn that any attack on the supreme leader would trigger full-scale retaliation across the region. Statements reference missile strikes on U.S. bases, allied infrastructure, and Israeli territory. Parliament-linked security bodies openly invoke religious justifications for war. Yet threats often rise loudest when leverage is weakest. Inside Iran, the situation remains volatile. Internet access has been repeatedly shut down, cutting off more than 90 million people from the outside world. Communication blackouts are among the longest in the country's history. When access briefly returns, Videos show funerals, empty streets, and exhausted citizens, not victory rallies. The government claims the violence has stopped, external verification remains impossible, and then came the diplomatic scramble. Iran's foreign minister has launched urgent regional talks, meeting neighboring governments in an effort to slow momentum toward conflict. The objective is clear: persuade Washington not to strike. Buy time, stabilize the perimeter. But time is exactly what Iran may no longer control. European sanctions are tightening. IRGC members now face detention risks across the EU. Financial pathways are shrinking. Diplomatic channels once protected by caution are closing under public pressure. Even allies are hedging. Meanwhile, Israel has quietly increased coordination with Washington. Intelligence sharing has intensified. Contingency planning is active. Regional actors are bracing for spillover. Markets are already reacting. Energy traders warn that any miscalculation could spike oil prices overnight. Shipping insurers are reassessing risk across the Gulf. Defense contractors are tracking deployments with unusual intensity. This is what systemic crisis looks like: an aging leader underground, a regime preparing escape routes, an elite military force labeled terrorist by its former negotiating partners, carrier strike groups in striking distance, and a population cut off, angry and bleeding. None of these developments alone guarantee war. Together, they create a moment where restraint becomes harder than action. Whether the trigger comes from a misread signal, a rogue strike, or a political decision made behind closed doors, the margin for error is collapsing. And as the supreme leader hides beneath Tehran, while planning for Moscow, the Islamic Republic is facing something it has not confronted since 1979. An existential test where survival is no longer assumed. What happens next will not just reshape Iran, it could redraw the balance of power across the entire Middle East within days. This is not normal deterrence behavior. This is crisis behavior. And then, intelligence agencies uncovered something that changed the entire equation, because the bunker was not the end of the plan. It was only the beginning.